Hi guys, welcome back to Hack News Vault. Today I've got a different sort of video for you. I'm going to be doing a TV show review, and there's going to be a lot more of these coming on the channel actually. I really love TV and film. I was previously a film production student. I currently work in the film and TV kind of social media industry and have done and kind of planning on continue to. So yeah, I absolutely love films. I go and watch films all the time. I love TV shows. I love talking about them. And I thought, well, why not just bring this to the channel? Yeah, I love toys. I love collecting. I love films. I love pop culture and all those sort of things. So this is going to be one of many videos coming on the series on whether I do sort of breakdowns throughout seasons or whether I just leave it for a kind of overall review and just a kind of long boring chit chat of the series. I'm not quite sure, but please stick around. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to give a like. Let me know down below in the comments. Subscribe if you want to stay around for more. But yeah, I'm going to kind of be rambling really. This isn't necessarily that I'm going to break episode by episode down. I've kind of missed the boat on that, and the episode actually came out, or the last episode of the series actually came out last week, so I don't really want to go on for too long. I'm going to kind of jump straight into it. I have got my iPad here to read off some notes. I kind of wanted to go off the top of my head, but being honest, it kind of just gets a little bit rambly, and I think this way is, you know, it allows me just to stick to the key points. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So as a kind of overall review for the season, I thought season 2 was actually amazing. Now, it did definitely start off a little bit slow, and in hindsight, there are definitely a few episodes that they could have skipped out along the way, or could have made a little bit quicker, or maybe things we didn't quite want to see, or potentially introducing the kids in Solo 17 a little bit earlier, and maybe making Juliette's journey there maybe a little bit different in the first episode, because that kind of got built up to be something and kind of fell flat a little bit, I felt. But I actually thought the overall arc and story for the season was amazing. Obviously, we kind of saw the parallels between two different silos simultaneously, and obviously the stories very much cross between each other, like when Juliette and Solo hear the bang from the explosion that her dad actually killed himself in, which we'll talk about later. So a lot of the story, whilst happening in different locations slightly, are actually synced and in line, especially obviously as we get to the last episode. But I just thought the actual storyline throughout Solo 17 was absolutely amazing. Obviously, we've only got about 4 or 5 characters over there anyway, including Juliette and Solo, obviously. So I just thought that actually was they'd done really well on how they worked, like the Solo 17. I thought Solo, I thought his name's Steve Zahn, I thought he was absolutely amazing. If you're like me, you would have known him from films like Diary of a Wimpy Kid and things like that. But he was absolutely amazing as Solo. I thought he portrayed what Solo needed to be, which is, in all truth, a child in an adult's body. You know, he brought himself up for 25 years in the silo, pretty much by himself, locked in the IT rooms, you know, with all of that amazing, insane information that he pretty much felt like he had no one else to tell and share with, and he was probably going to stay there till he died, and that still may be the case. We don't know. Hopefully we go back to that silo and there's more to come from those characters. But in particular, I thought Solo was an excellent addition, and I kind of called it early on actually that he basically is a child and he has those childlike tendencies, like to lie, and not only to lie but to get a bit confused of what he was actually told, like the instructions and stuff his dad gave him he thought was to protect all the information, but it wasn't. It was actually to protect himself. There's a really lovely line delivered by Juliette in the penultimate episode to the final. So yeah, I just thought there was some really nice moments in there, some really nice stories, and overall the season actual storyline was really good. Solo 17 gets big thumbs up from me. So to get over to Solo 18 now, where obviously the main kind of story is happening, is kind of our origin Solo, where we're actually kind of from, where the TV show is mainly taking place. Now, I thought Lucas, his character development in this series particularly was amazing. I mean, in the first season, he was basically the same as the end. It was in the beginning of this season. He was the same type of character, very timid, shy, no physical prowess, no sort of personality or ego, and very clever and intelligent. And we kind of thought that, and I didn't think we'd see too much of him. I thought he might get sent down to the mines or get something out, come back out the mines and get something from that. But ultimately, he ended up being a major player within this series, and his development throughout obviously is all down to what he learns about the legacy, what he learns about the pipe that can pump in gas, and how basically that there is a bigger plot, something bigger at play here, and that's kind of why he gives up all hope that there isn't much point in fighting and believing this and that anyway, because it is poisonous outside and they can just pump poisonous gas in if they want to. So I feel like his character development went from very hopeful about the silo and life to wanting to save and learn a lot, and then sort of realizing that it's all sort of pointless, and there is a lot more at play here actually, and they are being controlled and there's nothing they can do about it. I'm sure there's a few things we didn't actually find out that he whispers to Bernard there on the stairs. That was obviously a really important scene at the end of season 2. But yeah, definitely at the same time, I just can't help but feel like his character needs has got more to show, got more to tell. I think now Juliette's come back as well. He'll potentially share the news of her. They'll find a way to shut the pipe off. But yeah, I think we already have a lot of those answers, to be honest with you. I think we can clearly tell from Silo 17, if you read between the lines, that Solo's mum figured out how to shut off the poisonous gas, and that was to flood the place, basically. That's why the water's up so high, because if the water's up that high, then the poisonous gas can't be pumped through. It must be something along those lines, right? And just to quickly touch on that, we must assume that Solo's mum's also alive, because he never knows what happened to her, and he never saw her at the end. He saw his dad get shot, but we never saw what happened to his mum. And I think there's a little bit more to say in that. I think there might be some sort of system that runs around these different silos that may be accessible, and who knows, maybe we'll get to see her in future seasons. You know, we can only hope so. There's a lot more to be told of down where Lucas went, you know, where he spoke to the legacy about how he couldn't tell anyone and how they would, you know, start the safeguard procedure. And I think Solo's mum might have something to do with all that as well. But at the moment, there's a lot of theories. We've still got 2 seasons, 100% happening, and hopefully a couple more after that as well. Just to quickly touch on Tim Robbins then as Bernard, he was absolutely outstanding again this season. I mean, playing a completely different role from the first season, much as all of the characters are actually. If you really look at the perspective shift from not only the audience, but the characters' perspectives on not only, again, things that happen inside the silo, but the relationships between the characters. I mean, Bernard in this season is petrified pretty much. He's constantly what feels like chasing his tail, whilst he is one step ahead of the engineers and the guys at the bottom. Of course, he kind of feels like he's always kind of one step behind here, and he never kind of fully gets control of the situation. He just seems to put safeguards in place that constantly keep getting sort of blown out, for lack of a better term, which again is Dr. Nichols' his role in this is absolutely outstanding. We could kind of tell he was being built up to something, and his sacrifice to blow the stairs, so stop the raiders from being able to run up and down, and so that the rebels can get up to the top, was just amazing. And you could tell he'd been slowly building towards that as a bit of a redemption arc for how he felt, especially after the first season with Juliette leaving and his role as a doctor as well. He was really a good guy in this season, and he really, really helped out. And I feel like everyone was happy with the ending that he kind of got. A little bit sad that Juliette's going to have to find out that her dad made that sacrifice, but when she understands the story, I'm sure it'll all make sense to her, and she'll be very proud of him and stuff as well. But just to quickly go back to the Bernard situation, to touch on what I was saying about how he felt like he wasn't in control, that directly links actually to what happened with Dr. Nichols when he blew the stairs. Bernard's given a chat to Walker basically after. Basically what happened is Walker, as far as Bernard is aware, is snitched on the rebels, their whole plan. She thinks she's going to get her girlfriend out of jail, and her girlfriend doesn't want to come with her because she's a traitor. So she wants to speak to Bernard, and Bernard laughs in her face about it, basically. After, Walker reveals that, this was all a backstabbing plan. We set you up on purpose. We did all of this. This was meant to happen. And then the bombs don't go off. Bernard laughs, and that's just a great scene. The way that's all built up, the tension, it all happened at the same time was just excellent. So yeah, his death definitely felt rewarded. Tim Robbins' performance, when it basically all drops, that he thinks he's in absolute control and goes from absolute control to absolutely none, it's just a great moment. It just works really, really well. The whole moment then after that of him zombie-like walking up the stairs after Lucas has talked to him, it's just amazing. That's kind of that's the episode I feel like as Silo fans we've been waiting for, real developments, real changes, things actually moving and happening, and yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was an absolutely amazing last episode. I think everyone gave a 10 out of 10 performance and done what they needed to do. Things finally sort of fell into place, and just to go on to the next character I want to talk about is Sims, and how kind of he was affected by this, because he just felt like the biggest change in characters for me coming into the second season. He just felt like in the first season, he was a very dominant sort of alpha male, ran the silo, people respected him, he was in charge, he was next in line, he was meant to be Bernard's shadow, he was trusted by, the judge and all these sort of people in a kind of respectable way, maybe not in a personal manner, maybe they didn't have much personal respect, but for his role, he was definitely up there. in this season, he just felt like he just fell by the wayside. And I don't mean that in terms of he was written bad, he was written amazing. I just mean it in terms of he was the one that was always chasing his tail, even more so than Bernard. No one kind of respected him. He was never taken seriously of any decisions, even with his wife, that she was doing things behind sort of their back for their best interests. Bernard never really consulted him on much. The rebels maybe wanted him in for a little bit, but they kind of looked past him. Sims was not the character that he was in the first season in this season, and I found that really interesting, and it felt a bit confusing for the first half of the season, I must say. But with the ending and now having the hindsight to look back and go, wow, actually, if you think about the legacy is also meant to be the audience in that last moment when Sims walks in with his daughter and his son and his wife are behind him, and the legacy says like, you and your son have to leave and I'll speak to, like, with your wife. It's basically a way to convey to the audience that Sims isn't that character. He isn't that guy, you know, he's not him, as they say. And it's a good feeling for people who remember the first season very well, because he was horrible in that one. But I think this season has probably shown Sims's true colours, and he does kind of want best for the silo. He's kind of a little bit in between Bernard and also I forgot the character's name, but he's like the sheriff character as well. So like the sheriff really wants to do just good by the silo, just goes by the book, and Bernard is very much like in best interest for himself, and Sims just kind of swings between both. He does things for his interest, but then he also genuinely does want the best for the silo and wants himself and his family to carry on living well in the silo, as well as looking after everyone else. Where his wife's got that more menacing kind of, I'll look out for my best interests and not worry too much about the silo, similar to kind of Bernard's personality traits in a way. And I think that's why the legacy likes her and's happy to tell her certain things. Same with the judge as well. All these characters have similar personality traits, and yes, they can be good people, or they could be if they wanted to, but actually they're quite selfish people and quite their own interests are higher up on a sort of leaderboard than other people's interests. And I think that's what the legacy needs from someone as well, and whoever's kind of running the bigger picture also needs. Okay, so just kind of get into a couple more of the scenes now and winding this up. So just obviously the fire scene at the end that I've called, it kind of does speak for itself. I mean, Juliette is wearing the fireproof suit that we know, and she is, she's going to survive. She's our main character. We know she's going to survive. She might be in a sort of coma and badly damaged for a couple of episodes. She might get a serious sort of injury that means that she can't do certain things going forward, and maybe someone else has to venture out into one of the other silos. That's something I can see happening. But it's more interesting about Bernard. Obviously, he isn't wearing a fireproof suit. Juliette does jump on top of him. So what I'm assuming is that his damages are going to be minimal. Maybe, again, he's in some sort of coma, really badly injured. But I do think we'll see Tim Robbins for a little bit more. I don't think you get rid of him that quickly, especially without showing the body. They've sort of done the Marvel thing there, or all movies thing, really, where unless you actually see the person dead, they're not really dead. So yeah, I do think that we'll see both those characters next season. It was a great way to end it, actually. It was very they wanted to obviously end it on some sort of bombshell without making it too obvious, like the gun going off and someone having to really die. I think that was a cool way of doing it as well. And the truth is, we want to see both those characters next year. They've both got a story to tell. They both got a story to tell with each other as well. I think one conversation they had, which was really interesting, when Nichols basically said, I don't know who, the what, or the why, and then something like that. And then Bernard replies, oh, I know the who, but I don't know why, or something like that. So there's definitely information they can share with each other. It's maybe a bit more secret's going to come out next year. Juliette still needs to explore sort of IT and the legacy and understand what all that kind of is, because she still doesn't really know a lot about it. And her whole goal this season was to get back and save the silo. And I kind of now want to know what's the next goal, right? What's like her next goal? Because we know our next goal is the audience, and that's just what I'm going to get onto in a minute and what we want to find out. But what does she want to do? And why does she want to do it? But does she want to just save them people, stay in the silo? Does she want to move them out if it's possible? Is she going to figure out more secrets? I'm really interested. Or are we going to have a whole season of sort of rebellion and just fighting within the silo? Some people get out and die, some people don't. I'm really interested to see where they're going to take this, basically. But we'll move on to the last part of this video now, which is without a doubt the most important part and the most interesting. So the best part of the episode was definitely the cut to rain, as I've wrote it here. So I'm not sure I'm the only one that done this, but I genuinely had to check that it was still in the same episode, whether I'd lent on the controller or the remote, or it just ended briefly and skipped to another show or something. And I couldn't believe that I was still in the same show. When I heard the rain, like it just all clicked that even in the silo we hadn't heard rain, like, you know, even that we hadn't seen rain or bad weather, it just kind of always looked like a barren wasteland. And then obviously as the camera pans up, we're in Washington DC, and it's like, wow, we're really getting this, like we're going back like 350 years or so, I think it is, and we're really seeing kind of where this all came from. And there was a few hints throughout the series, but something I really want to quickly talk about is how obviously the character we meet, the man and the woman, the man's a congressman, and what we can kind of assume is he's a congressman from a certain district in Georgia, I believe it is. And there's some chats earlier in the series about but from Wyoming or Georgia and stuff as well. And pretty much what we can assume is there's 50 silos, or 51, including the one that's actually running all of the other ones. But there's 50 silos, and they all represent a state, and I think that's why we're seeing a congressman, because it's going to be, you know, I think the story, I can kind of just foreshadowing and guessing this, that the story is going to develop in a way in which each state has to create a silo full of, you know, people, and that's how it kind of funnels down and work. We know there's been a dirty bomb, or there is going to be a dirty bomb. There's been some nuclear stuff with Israel going on, or Iran and stuff like that as well, out in the Middle East. I'm talking within the show right now, within the show's context, sorry, just not real world context. And yeah, I think that he's going to have an integral part at either passing the bill or making the silos, because he was an engineer and stuff like that as well. And obviously we know he must have some sort of part in it, and she must have some sort of part in it, because that duck that we see, the Pez duck, is obviously something, is a relic from the first season, and obviously it is in the second season as well, with Sims's son. So I do just think that there's a lot more going to be intertwined here. In the second season, we got 2 stories running parallel of the 2 silos, and now I think we're going to get this silo 18 in the current day, and then we're going to also get this story from 300 years ago about how it happened. And I'd really love season 3 to actually push on and be that season for Silo that has all the answers and shows a lot more, and doesn't just keep setting us up for bigger things. I think that season 2 ended in a way that was just perfect after a slow start, and yeah, it's just going to be really exciting. This next season could be absolutely brilliant. Like, it's so interesting to see how we got here, why we got here, like who's in control of it. And then you've also got the other questions of like, who's running the silos now, and like, why is it just the way it is to try and preserve human life? You know, if they're going to just gas the whole silo anyway, why does it matter if they all want to go out? You know, what's sort of the issue there? So yeah, there's a lot of answers. There's a lot of answers in this season, which is good, but there's also a lot more questions, which I feel like we were in the exact same spot when season 1 ended. So that's what makes a great TV show after all. Apple TV have smashed it once again. If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this, but you really, really should. And I just really, really recommend it. It's an absolute great show. It'll keep your mind sort of ticking along. It will keep those questions sort of going around, and yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. But anyway, that's enough from me, guys. I've rambled for long enough. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try and do a couple more of these. I've got an idea about doing sort of instant film reviews. You know, when you come out the cinema and you're in your car with your friend and you just want to chat about the film, I'm figuring I'm going to probably record a couple of those, so they'll be sort of lower production than this, but hey, look, that's part of YouTube, right? But yeah, I hope you did enjoy. Let me know down below, and yeah, I'll catch you next time. Peace.